Hello and a very warm welcome to this special after 42 matches and 3 weeks of non-stop action. It's time for the first semi-final of this ICC T20 World Cup, and it will be played between England and New Zealand. Both teams have lost one game each in their Super 12 stage, but it has really been England who've shown how dominating they can be. But do not ever take New Zealand lightly, especially in an ICC tournament. And that's why this semi-final is going to be a cracker of a match. Nikhil Narayan is here with me as we preview this game. Nikhil, it's a big game coming up, but once again, if you just look at the two teams on paper, England's go in as favourites.
Absolutely, Maya. England start this match with a 65% chance of win, New Zealand 35%. So England, the overwhelming favourites to win this big match. This is a rematch of the 2019 World Cup final. What a great match that was. The super over was tied in that match. Anything close to that match and we can expect a humdinger today.
Absolutely. All of us remember that 2019 World Cup final. First, it was a tied match, then the super over was tied, and then, of course, it was decided on the count of boundaries. A lot of people thought that maybe the trophy should have been shared. And what's also interesting, which Nikhil was just telling me a little while earlier, is that the last time these two met in a T20 international, it was on the 10th of November, and that was a tied match as well. So one thing that New Zealand ended up losing.
Yes.
So that means that one thing New Zealand wants at the moment is that for it to not be a tied game, because their record in the super overs is not great. But if we can get even half of what we got in the 2019 World Cup final, then we'd be happy. We just want a good contest. Let's also talk a little bit about the head-to-head records, Nikhil. Even in that, England are better. They have the upper hand.
Yes, Maya. England has won 13 of the 21 matches between the two sides. Even in the World T20, they lead 3-2. Interestingly, the last time these two teams met in a World T20 was in the semi-final, again in 2016 in Delhi, when England beat New Zealand. And guess who was the man of the match then? Jason Roy. And he's out of the tournament. So, yes, head-to-head, form-wise, England are the #1 ranked team also. England have won 5 of the last 7 bilateral series. England, in every way, has a better head-to-head record against New Zealand.
Also, if you just see the way how they have dominated in the Super 12 stage, I think New Zealand, unlike England, have played a very conservative, methodical kind of game in every match. And the other thing, Nikhil, that stands out for me and something that they'll be tested with, that New Zealand, against all the good teams like Pakistan, India and Afghanistan, the score was not above 150. So it was a par total. They've tried to get to that, but we know what England can do, and if it goes anywhere above 180, can the New Zealand batting come good?
That is, we've discussed this before, Meha. The game plan for New Zealand has to be restrict England to below 150 ideally, and then they have the batsmen likes of Williamson who can chase that down. They love playing the anchor accumulator game. They don't have power hitters except Martin Guptill and James Neesham. It's not easy for them to chase anything above 165. So New Zealand need to restrict England, if England bats first, to less than 155, 160. Also, this New Zealand is a very dangerous team, and we've discussed this before. See, New Zealand is like this, they remind me of these, my classmates of mine, very sweet, these boys, very cute, sweet boys who used to sit in the front benches, teachers' favorites, no controversy. And 60-70 percenters, very mediocre. But when the board exam came, they used to top. This is what New Zealand is in ICC tournaments.
That's true. They're quiet, they're polite, they're graceful, but they hand you the defeat also in a graceful manner like they did to India. But how are these two teams now stacking up against each other? What is the winning percentage? Who has the upper hand? Nikhil's done the math for you. So take a look at this.
New Zealand versus England. The T20 World Cup semi-final can be termed a grudge match. New Zealand have a score to settle in this rematch of the 2019 World Cup final. That day, so much had gone against the Kiwis, who have been on a perfect par in field play. The gentlemen Black Caps are not known for nursing grudges. However, dice appears heavily loaded in favour of England to repeat the outcome of that historic final at the Lords 2 years ago. This video will reveal why England stands a stronger chance to win. These statistical analysis will also conclude the percentile possibility of England's win. England lead the overall head-to-head record, having won 13 of the 21 matches against New Zealand. However, the Kiwis gave them a good run for their money the last time these two sides played a bilateral series in the format. Precisely 2 years ago, on November 10, 2019, England prevailed over the 11 Kiwis via a super over tiebreaker. England also hold a marginal edge in the T20 World Cups with a 3-2 record against New Zealand. Since 2019, England have won 3 of the 5 bilateral encounters with the Kiwis, who also trail by 2 matches to 3 in the 5 T20 World Cup games played between the two teams. In the UAE, England have won 10 of their 13 matches, whereas New Zealand have won just 5 and lost 7. The Ian Morgan-led team will also have history on their side in terms of their results in knockout matches. England have been victorious in 19 of the 28 matches they have played since 2020. New Zealand, on the other hand, have a win-loss of 1.333 for having won 16 and lost 12 in this time frame. England have won 5 of the 7 bilateral series they have played since 2020. This difference in the big match temperament is a telling factor between the two units. Batting prowess also makes the Englishmen favourites. Their resurgence in limited overs cricket has been built on the sheer destructive abilities of a highly skilled and talented batting unit. England have the second best combined batting average of 28.32 and more significantly, a strike rate of 142.23, which is by far the highest since 2019. New Zealand, on the other hand, has a batting average of 25.7 and strike rate of 135.65 in the time frame. Not surprisingly, it is the Williamson-led side which has a better bowling average and strike rate since 2019. They are also the more restrictive bowling unit with a combined economy of 7.9 during this period. England, based on these numbers and form, become overwhelming favourites for defeating New Zealand. In statistical probability, England stand a 65% chance of sailing into the final of the 2021 T20 World Cup. The Kiwis will be out to put up a spirited display of cricket to cause an upset. The probability of their win remains 35% in the pre-match analysis. New Zealand will also benefit from the absence of Jason Roy, who has been ruled out with an injury. Taking all the above parameters into consideration, England will go into the big encounter with a 65% chance of winning, while New Zealand has a 35% chance of settling the scores in Abu Dhabi.
So the news from Abu Dhabi is that New Zealand have won the toss and they've opted to field first. So they've gone with the trend of the tournament, obviously expecting a bit of dew later on. But this, in a sense, Nikhil, is like 1 point to New Zealand already winning the toss, because we've seen that make a difference for the matches that we've seen even being played in Abu Dhabi. But they've gone in with the same side, and when you look at these two sides on paper, I think one of the bigger problems will be how to get this long, never-ending batting lineup of England out?
Absolutely. I mean, they have been held by Jason Roy's injury, so that is one down already for England. But still, it never ends. Now, Meha, we also have the England 11.
Correct.
Butler,
so as
yeah,
expected, as expected, we talked about this. As
Yeah.
expected, Sam Billings comes in place of Jason Roy. Though we saw that James Vince had been drafted into the squad, but he's not in the playing 11. Also, Mark Wood is in. So the sense that I'm getting here is that, of course, England wanted to make sure that they had an extra batsman. They also know, Nikhil, that their fifth bowler in Moeen Ali and Liam Livingstone, they both are doing a good job, except for that match against South Africa, right?
Correct. I think it's still a very, very strong England batting lineup.
Yeah.
They've gone. Johnny Bairstow is slated to open the innings. He's done it many times in the past. He's experienced. He's a match winner at the top of the order. Butler, Bairstow have opened before. They're also a phenomenal opening pair. So Malan, Ali, Morgan, Billings is an extremely dangerous middle order batsman, great against spin bowling. So this is a phenomenal England T20 side. And New Zealand now, having decided to field first, need to restrict them to less than, 160.
Because I get a sense when you look at the New Zealand batting, Nikhil, other than Martin Guptill and Devon Conway, nobody else has really played big innings. And I think that will be one of the things with scoreboard pressure, this being a do-or-die match. If England score anywhere, and we know that this is a high-scoring ground, we've seen what India did, scored 210 in that game. So I think one of the things would be, how do Trent Boult and Tim Southee just bowl in the power play?
Absolutely crucial. Boult versus Butler, we've discussed this yesterday, Maya, will be the key battle. New Zealand needs to restrict England, I'm again repeating, to less than 160, 170, due or no due, and they will be due, and England bowlers will be affected. But New Zealand does not have the batting prowess to chase down above 160, 165. It's not going to be easy, especially in a high scoring game. It is not their style. So they need to restrict England, due or no due.
How much of a difference will do you believe that Jason Roy being out has sort of made this a more balanced contest between the two sides? Because if Jason Roy was there and he epitomizes England's aggressiveness, it would have been England a much better side.
Yeah, I mean, when I was doing my calculations, it was actually 75% in England's favour. So Jason Roy is not being there took away a lot from England, because he is one half of that opening pair with Jos Butler. He's been a brilliant match winner. He comes out aggressive at the top of the order no matter what the situation is. He epitomizes what England has done, the transformation of England in limited overs cricket based on their batting since 2018. He is one of the pillars of that. And also, as we just discussed, he was the highest impact player of the semi-final in 2016 when they won. So him not being there is a big blow, but replaced by Johnny Bates, so
Do you think, though, in a situation like this, where you know that Jason Roy, Jos Butler's partner, is out of action, the burden's going to be on Jos Butler. Yes, he's been in phenomenal form, second highest run scorer of the tournament, but knowing that somewhere his wicket is so important right now for this team, because even for England, they have a very good batting lineup, but the middle order hasn't fired. Owen Morgan has been in horrible form.
You're right. I mean, Jos Butler has been their main scorer. It will add a bit of pressure because Johnny Bairstow also hasn't scored many runs. But, knowing Butler England doesn't follow that policy unlike other teams. Even with India, Rohit Sharma goes slow, Rahul attacks. With England, everyone attacks. So both of them at the top of the order will attack. The only player who I can see playing a sort of anchor innings in this team is David Malan. But otherwise, I don't think Jos Butler will change his way just because Jason Roy is not in the top two. Both of them will go hard.
But like we were talking about how there is so much depth in England's batting, do you then believe that the role of Mitchell Santner and Ish Sodhi becomes even more crucial here, because they will have to contain the English batsmen? If the openers go off to a big start, then it'll come down to the pressure on Ish Sodhi and Mitchell Santner.
Absolutely. They've got the better of the toss because now they won't bowl with a wet ball. So since they've got the better of the conditions, both Sodhi and Santner need to restrict that England middle order. If they don't do so, if they don't pick wickets, given the depth of that order, we're looking at 180 plus here. Because Abu Dhabi is the best batting strip of the 3 strips in UAE in this World T20. And therefore Santner's role and the role of, in fact Santner is even more crucial. Santner was the player of the series when these two teams last met in that same series which ended with a historic tie on the 10th of November. Santner was brilliant in that series. So, you know, Santner's role is very crucial. Ish Sodhi, of course, is very important. He's been one of the best leg spinners in the world, picking wickets in the middle overs. Santner is more restrictive. They need to pick wickets in the middle overs for New Zealand.
I was just seeing their batting and look at the depth. I mean, for New Zealand, number 6 is Jimmy Neesham, 7 is Mitchell Santner. That's a long tail for them. Whereas for England, Chris Woakes, Chris Jordan, I mean, you just look at that batting depth and you realize that New Zealand would know this as well. The good thing is that, you know, New Zealand is one team that can look back at records in ICC tournaments. They're always punching above their weight. Somehow, something comes into them when they're playing in a World Cup, in an ICC tournament. So I think that'll be one of the things for them. But between the two captains, one poker face, Owen Morgan, doesn't give away much. You know, has no real reaction. I've not seen him, from his expression, have any reaction if they're winning or losing. Kane Williamson, we know, icy cool, but at the same time, tactically brilliant. This will also be these two, you know, the geniuses when it comes to captaincy.
Absolutely. Morgan hasn't had a great time in the IPL. Also, personally, he's been out of form. Kane Williamson has been in fine form, not in the IPL, but for New Zealand in T20I cricket. He has scored lots and lots of runs in the last couple of years. Tactics-wise, I mean, both of them are considered to be shrewd captains, at least for their national teams. So it's going to be an interesting battle. I mean, who they play, the bowlers they choose in the power play, who they keep for the death. Will Moeen Ali come as a cameo specialist as he came for CSK? All these will be very interesting battles within the larger battle.
My thing is that New Zealand's always called the dark horse of the tournament, even after having the kind of record that they do in ICC tournaments, and somehow that works well for them because they like being the underdogs. They like being the pressure, they like not having the pressure on them, the pressure being on the opposition. It works wonderfully for them. Right now, again, as we talk, it is England who are going in as favourites.
I think that has also got to do with the cricketing boards of these nations. The big three are India, Australia and England. New Zealand, you know, a country of population of 1/4 of Delhi. So no one wants, you know, no one really sort of cares about cricket, so as to say. And therefore, they're always the underdogs, no matter how they've done in ICC tournaments. And they seem to make the semi-finals of every ICC tournament. But they're still, they're perennial underdogs.
Do you think that New Zealand would be approaching it with a bit of hurt from the 2019 World Cup final? I mean, I'm sure despite them being these good boys of international cricket, you know, and Kane Williamson again very graceful in his defeat in the 2019 final, saying they deserved it, the better team won. Somewhere they would be hurting. They know on that given day both teams were brilliant.
That loss left them devastated, no matter what Williamson portrays. And he is a very nice guy. But
also this sense of crossing the line. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I remember Martin Guptill he came out for 1 ball in the super over. They required 2 runs. He could only take 1 run and the match was tied. So Martin Guptill, I think, will be the key for New Zealand in this match. He won't forget that match. And he is the explosive X factor they have at the top of the order. The one batsman who can help them chase down even if England scores more than 170.
But if England do end up scoring more than 170 on this ground, it is possible because this is one of the better batting surfaces in the tournament. I think it'll also come down to the likes of Glenn Phillips, Devon Conway, Jimmy Neesham.
Absolutely. Those three will need to contribute, and then their battle with the likes of Chris Jordan in the death overs, Adil Rashid in the middle overs will become extremely crucial, you know, in the chase.
Well, so it is, as we've been saying, a big contest between England and New Zealand. Both these teams have been brilliant in the Super 12 stage and rightfully now are in the semi-final of the tournament. The first semi-final begins in 15 minutes from now. Hopefully, as we've been saying, it's a cracker of a match. We remember what happened in the 2019 World Cup final, and both Nikhil and I expect it to be just as thrilling. And even if it's not just as thrilling, even if it's half of it, I think it would be money's worth semi-final. Well, that's it from all of us here in News 9. Do keep following us for all the updates, and of course we will be back mid-innings to take a look back at the innings. Goodbye.